Now available. Paperback and Kindle Unlimited. ISIS, the main event. It's carnage inside of a steel cage when the goddess next door steps in the squared circle with the beast from the boss in this action-packed all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, the main event, paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Recently, director Spike Lee called out Bill Cosby for allegedly stealing the premise for A Different World from his film School Days. And as someone who has worked and studied the entertainment industry for over 25 years, I can tell you that Bill Cosby did not steal Spike Lee's premise. Now, in the entertainment industry as related to intellectual property, these Hollywood studios are extremely paranoid. And because they are afraid of getting sued for copyright and trademark infringement, oftentimes they leave very long paper trails as related to any sort of concept presented to them. So usually those who work in the entertainment industry, when they are dealing with a writer or a producer, they oftentimes have an individual sign a release absolving them of all liability if they read their concepts. So usually if somebody is interested in your concept, they usually send you a release form releasing them of all liability, and this document clearly states what concepts they're reading, and it has the date of when they read your concept. Usually a release form lets both sides know, okay, this person is reading my concept, this person is reading my material, and this person is asking for permission to read my material. So if they are asking for permission, this legally puts, while it releases us of liability, it puts starts the paper trail letting them know, yes, I have read your material, and this is a document that is admissible in court if this individual goes out here and decides to participate in your project. So there's a paper trail starting from the beginning. And I find it interesting Spike Lee makes this allegation, but he does not present any sort of document saying that there was a written release documenting that Bill Cosby actually looked at his treatment for School Days, his screenplay for School Days, or any sort of documentation letting us know that he had any sort of business interaction with Bill Cosby. Because in the television and film industries, you need to have documentation to even deal with an individual. And usually most people, like a Bill Cosby, they are going to have that documentation presented by members of their team, such as their business manager or their agent. And if you look at the timeline, Spike Lee was an up-and-coming director because he had just come off his first film, She's Gotta Have It, in 1987. So in order for him to gain access to a Bill Cosby probably would have directed him to his manager, and his manager and his attorneys would have made him sign any sort of written release before they allowed him to pitch any concepts to him. So your Spike Lee and his allegation right there, when I look at that part of the argument, it falls completely apart, because anybody who knows how the entertainment business works knows that there is a process for having an interaction with someone like a Bill Cosby, and a process for presenting them with material. So when I listen to that part of his argument, it falls completely apart. And when I take a critical examination of the timeline, it also falls completely apart, because to say Bill Cosby stole his premise for School Days at the same time that A Different World was coming out, that argument also falls apart, because if you know anything about production processes, you will understand that these processes usually take a couple of years to work on, and it takes a couple of years to get a project to greenlight. Now, your Spike Lee says that your School Days, which came out in 1988, was stolen by Bill Cosby, who came out with A Different World in 1987. And when I take a critical examination of the timeline, I know that's not possible because I know how Hollywood processes work. Now, your A Different World was a television show, and usually it takes time to get a television show put together. And this show, which came out in 1987, your Bill Cosby was probably working on it as far back as maybe, I say, 1985. And the reason why I say he was probably working on this show as far back as 1985 is because when it comes down to developing a concept for a television show, usually there's a process as related to pitching the show. Even if you are a big star like Bill Cosby was back in the 1980s, you have to go through your network executives, you have to go through your production company, and you have to present your concept to those individuals. And usually, again, there's legal written releases that have to be made, legal documents that have to go back and forth. And usually there is a whole process as related to getting that concept through in order to get the green light. And I believe Bill Cosby, it would have taken him at least a year and a half just to get the premise put together for this show. And he would have had to have started in 1985 in order to get that process started, in order to have that show ready to premiere in 1987. Because as part of that process, you usually have to, again, meet with the executives, pitch your concept, and then you have to start writing what they call a series Bible. Now, a series Bible is something where you are presenting your premise for your show, you are presenting your concept designs for your show, your concept designs for your set pieces, your concept designs for your storylines, and you are presenting the scripts for your first 3 episodes, which are usually the pilot episode and the first 2 or 3 episodes to show how this show would work in the network's schedule. So usually when you have a TV show, you have that to put together one of these series Bibles, and the series Bible usually, again, is usually about 300-400 pages of material. So this is not something that you're going to be able to put together overnight, because usually, again, you have to go out here and you have to give the producers and the studio executives this list of who all the characters are, what their character traits are like. Usually you give me concept art with the visual aesthetics of what the characters are going to look like. Usually there are pictures of the wardrobe of what they're going to be wearing. And usually there are, sketches of the set pieces and how you want the sets to look for certain scenes. And these are things that have to be submitted to the studio executives along with the budget for the production. And this is before you even get any sort of green light. So you have to have that series Bible ready to go to submit to these to not only the production company, but also the production company has to produce it, and you have to have that series Bible as related to those studio executives so they know what they're investing in. So you need to have that series Bible, and again, that series Bible needs at least about 6 months to a year for you to put together. Now, your Bill Cosby was probably, again, because there's so much work that goes into putting a series like this together, it was probably going to take him at least 6 months to a year just to do the series Bible alone. And then after you do the series Bible and you get your green light, there comes casting. And casting usually takes about a good month or so, depending on who you're dealing with And then there's the screen test time, which also takes another couple of weeks to do after you've done the casting. So when I look at all of the production processes that went on with A Different World and putting A Different World together, I can again honestly say that your Bill Cosby did not steal Spike Lee's premise. And I can also say that he didn't steal Spike Lee's premise because, again, in Hollywood, there are rules for submitting productions. And again, one of those rules is you have to have your scripts registered with the Writers Guild, you have to have your premise registered with the Writers Guild, and you have to have a registered copyright because people in Hollywood don't want to wind up in a lawsuit where they have to pay damages for you stealing somebody's premise. So Spike is sitting there talking about Bill Cosby stealing A Different World, but again, I know it's not possible because there are legal things that go on. There are processes that go on as related to getting a TV show greenlit. There are processes related towards getting a show into production, and you have to meet the original steps again as related to getting that show done is, again, if you want to interact with any celebrity as related to a project, you're going to have to get a written release. And again, the written release lets people know, okay, I've had an interaction with this celebrity on such and such date. They have read such and such material. And if they go out here and use this material and you have that document, you can take that individual to court and you can win damages. So the critical question I would ask Spike Lee is, where is your written release to say that you had an interaction with Bill Cosby? Because to make an allegation like this without any sort of written release, the whole argument falls completely apart. Because you say that you came up with School Days in 1988, but A Different World came out in 1987, and anybody who knows production processes knows it takes a good year to a year and a half to get a project off the ground as related to television. And usually after they do the pilot, there's usually some test viewings and then reshoots if possible. So there's no way that this whole timeline that your Spike Lee is alleging transpired could have possibly happened, because if he was filming School Days, a project that was a feature film, and that got greenlit, that shows me that your Bill Cosby couldn't have possibly stolen your concept, because you would have to go through a process with these movie studios, these movie executives, and they would put you through the same legal bureaucracy that Bill Cosby would have had to go through in order to get his project greenlit. Because, again, these studios are very paranoid regarding lawsuits, and usually they want to cover their backsides as related to any sort of legal issue. This is why they have people sign written releases for reading their material. This is why entertainment lawyers make sure that their clients are represented so that their rights are taken care of and the studio's rights are protected. And in order for a production to, again, get that green light to go into production, it's a whole process. And usually, again, it starts out with you registering that script with the WGA and the Copyright Office and having that release, which starts the paper trail, which absolves the studios of any sort of liability. So when I listen to Spike Lee making this allegation out of the air, I have to call BS on it, because as someone who knows the process of the entertainment industry and the film and television business, I can say Bill Cosby did not steal anything, and your Spike Lee is making an allegation, I believe, to brown nose and bootlick those in Hollywood in hopes of getting favor with them. by maligning the reputation of Bill Cosby. So when I listen to these allegations, I know them to be completely false, because if you're Spike Lee, really believed Bill Cosby stole his concept, he would have filed a lawsuit in 1988, and he would have gone out of his way to file that lawsuit because he would have the paper trail to prove that he had interaction with Bill Cosby, Bill Cosby's agent, Bill Cosby's manager, and or Bill Cosby's entertainment lawyer, and he would have been able to document, okay, I had this meeting with Bill Cosby's people, and I pitched this concept called School Days regarding black people going to a historically black college, and these characters are similar to my characters, and he would have been able to present that argument with that paper trail, which everybody in the entertainment industry has to go through. He would have been able to date and document the days he met with these people. He would have been able to date and document the times he met with them. And he would have had postmarked letters stating that, yes, I dealt with his lawyer and I dealt with his people. And that written paper trail would have proven, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, that your Spike Lee had a interaction with Bill Cosby in possibly 1985 or so, and that would have showed us, okay, he stole this premise. But with his movie coming out in 88 and Bill Cosby's A Different World coming out in September of 1987, it shows me that while these premises are somewhat similar, there was no theft of intellectual property by your Bill Cosby, because your Spike Lee had gotten his green light around about a year or year and a half after, because usually when you're making a film for 88, you are filming in 87, and usually when you get your green light is usually about early 87 or late 86. So it shows me that, again, the timelines don't add up. The timelines don't fit within Spike's argument, and the timelines don't really fit what he is alleging, because, again, if he was saying that Bill Cosby stole his material, he would be able to prove that with documentation, because the entertainment industry is always about protecting itself. And a lot of times you can't even talk to these people by just calling them up directly. Usually you have to go through an agent. Usually you have to go through a manager. And that is a bit of a chore in and of itself. And with your Spike Lee being a up-and-coming director, I don't think he would have gained access to someone as prominent as Bill Cosby at the time. Even though he was a critically acclaimed director, he was only doing one film, She's Gotta Have It, and he wasn't really on that level just yet to get the attention of a Bill Cosby or be able to contact a Bill Cosby. So I look at this whole picture and this timeline, and it just doesn't add up, except for the whole point where your Spike Lee is just looking to pander to get brownie points with his slave masters, because he thinks that taking a dig at Bill Cosby will build him up and make him be able to elevate to a higher position. So when I look at this whole situation, it looks like your Spike Lee is looking to bootlick and brown nose after he got his Oscar, and he's looking to get white validation and white approval while taking a swipe at Bill Cosby, looking to build his legacy on the ruins of Bill Cosby's legacy. Really saddening me, because I really respect Spike's work as an artist, but when I look at him as an individual, his behavior is extremely egregious here, because for him to try to malign the legacy and reputation of Bill Cosby to try to preserve his own shows me that your Spike Lee has sold out, and your Spike Lee has not done the right thing as related to just being a decent human being. If you'd like to pick up some of my positive black fiction, like the ISIS series, the East Team series, the John Haynes series, the Spinsterella trilogy, and the Thetas. You can pick up all of those great black fiction books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct, not my SJS, when it helps me make more videos, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose on Amazon.com.